Hello and welcome to the Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program. I'm Eben Mabunda. Now, a new chapter, a calculated pause. The European Union Council has concluded, of course, its 2026 annual review, officially lifting all remaining travel bans and asset freezes on Zimbabwean individuals as well as entities. While the move signals a shift toward constructive engagement and debt dialogue, the bloc has simultaneously extended its arms embargo until February 20, 2027. Could this new development significantly reshape Zimbabwe's economic landscape? What does this renewed engagement mean for Zimbabwe? Could it open doors to expanded trade with Europe, foster investment opportunities, and support inclusive economic growth? To help us navigate this, we're joined by the European Union Ambassador to Zimbabwe, Ms. Catherine Hageman, the Ambassador to Zimbabwe. Ma'am, hello and welcome to the Chase.
Thank you, Maitabasa.
Fantastic. Glad to have you on the program, Your Excellency. Now, our discussion tonight is the EU-Zimbabwe Relations 2.0. What changes can we expect? Now, please note that all the views expressed on this very program do not reflect those of Zim Papers or those of Z10 Prime, but are the exclusive opinions of our guests here on the program. Now, Ambassador, to break the ice, this conversation is coming following, of course, the recent decision by the European Union to lift sanctions on Zimbabwe. How important is that at Zim-EU relations?
Thank you very much for the question. As you rightly pointed out, the European Union member states, decided unanimously to lift the restrictive measures that were still in place for Zimbabwe. And I think this reflects the member states' view that we want to open, as you said, a new chapter to recognize that we want to deepen relations between the European Union and Zimbabwe, in particular in the areas of trade and investment. And therefore, we decided to indeed lift all remaining travel bans and asset freezes of individuals and entities, only leaving the arms embargo that limits European companies from exporting arms to Zimbabwe.
Right. Of course, the shift is being hailed as a major turning point where EU-Zimbabwe relations are concerned. Now, given that the Council lifted personal travel and asset restrictions, what specific commendable progress, particularly regarding the arrears clearance and debt resolution, convinced the bloc that now was the right time for the reset?
No, thank you very much. So each year the Council renews or reviews, let's say, the restrictive measures, and then, as I said, it's unanimity. So each country, in a sense, makes its own assessment of whether they which way they want to vote. And so I think this decision reflects the joint realization of achievements that Zimbabwe has done, and also the will from our side to take this further. Every year, the ambassadors here locally, the EU member state ambassadors, do an assessment and write a report on where we think Zimbabwe is, and that feeds into that discussion in Brussels on assessing where Zimbabwe is. I think you rightly pointed to the arrears clearance as one area where I think we've seen quite a bit of progress. We've seen very recently, of course, the discussions with the IMF and the hopefully the successful staff monitored program, and hopefully tomorrow we'll see that. I understand by tomorrow it should become also public. So that was a big success on the economic front. At the same time, we've also seen real success on the land compensation front, with payments to the BIPA farmers of the first 2 tranches coming through. That I think also went into this decision making. And we've made progress on the governance front as well. I was co-chairing the first meeting now last week only for the governance track. My predecessor, of course, did many meetings before that. And I think while the picture is maybe a bit more mixed on the governance side, I think we all recognize that there has been progress, that there have been engagements, there has been good discussions also with civil society, that there has been the abolition, the lifting of the
the restrictions.
No, I was talking about the death penalty.
Right, okay, sure.
So the abolition of the death penalty. So all of these are things that the member states look at to make up their opinion about whether to lift the restrictive measures. I think it also reflects very much the will of member states to do more trade and investment, and that also fed into that decision.
Right. Of course, when you look at the degree of trade between Zimbabwe and the EU, we're looking at about 900 million United States dollars. And of course, the European Union has set a target of $1 billion where trade and investment is concerned between the two countries. Now, question is this: how does the lifting of the sanctions impact the prospects where bilateral trade between Zimbabwe and the EU are concerned?
Yeah. No, you already pointed out we already have a really big trade. We are the 4th largest trading partner of Zimbabwe, and it's been growing. And indeed, we hope to get to 1 billion. Maybe we've already gotten to it in 2025. I haven't seen the numbers for 2025. So indeed, this is one area that's growing, and where we are working very much with those interested in exporting to Europe to help them to increase that volume. So very much looking at increasing the volume of trade. I think there's a lot of interest from investors in coming here. There are many. We had many companies ask questions about it. Mm-hmm. There are still some areas where I think it's difficult in Zimbabwe to do business, to invest in Zimbabwe, and that's where all the discussions around ease of business and really making Zimbabwe open for business are coming from.
Right. Small to medium enterprises are significant contributors to the Zimbabwean economy, with a good number of the youth falling under that particular category. What prospects of partnership exist between SMEs or startups in that regard with European players and even European funders?
Yes, we have several programs that support young entrepreneurs and give them opportunities to try to feed into the value chains that eventually then also get to export. We have one of the areas is we focus on agriculture and agribusinesses to try to help them improve the value chains and get there and get all the standards so that they can export to the European Union. We also have, together with the European Investment Bank and PARCO, we have a program where we are giving 100 million. It's a sort of onward loan from local banks then to small and medium enterprises. And one of the things that's very, in a sense, strange about the Zimbabwean economy is that people don't have loans. And that means that if you are a small business and you're trying to expand, and all you need is, let's say, a machinery in order to make your production more efficient, you don't have a way to get a loan to sort of make that step upwards. And that's where the intermediate lending of the European Investment Bank, together with local banks, helps small and medium enterprises to get loans so that they can sort of expand their businesses.
Right. Well, of course, there would be prospects for growth in that very regard. I'll move on to another element of the bilateral relations between Zimbabwe and the EU, which is the fact that Zimbabwe has technically had duty-free access to European markets for years. De-risking by international banks has often been blocked, or rather has often blocked the actual flow of trade. Now, the question is this: how will your office work with European financial institutions to ensure that this diplomatic thaw actually translates into cheaper credit and more foreign direct investment flows into the Zimbabwean market?
Well, thanks for that question. It also shows a little bit there are two different things that are happening here. We've had the restrictive measures, and indeed there may have been some over-compliance or de-risking of some banks that then try to stay away from Zimbabwe or make it more harder for Zimbabweans to get credit. I think the decision that we've had by the Council makes it very clear, saying we no longer have any restrictive measures. So whatever you thought is no longer an issue. So that bit, I think it was very important to do the communication in a way that we also made clear also to financial institutions that these restrictive measures have ended. But at the same time, of course, Zimbabwe still has the arrears issue, that it is a country that's highly in debt and has arrears, and that is actually something that makes it much harder for banks to give credit and be active in this country. And that's the bit that we now have to work on by working with the government in the structural dialogue on arrears clearance and debt clearance, so that we can get those arrears cleared, in particular the international arrears of the international lenders, the multilateral lenders, and then I think you can see much more engagement of international banks and donors on that front.
Perhaps as follow-up, does the decision to clear Zimbabwe from the sanctions that were imposed by the EU serve as a formal endorsement of Zimbabwe's debt clearing map or agenda at this particular point?
I of course don't know what member states in particular motivated to vote the way they did, so to speak, but I think it does that the real engagement of the government now on the arrears clearance, the real commitment to commit to an SMP and to some of the measures that are maybe not that easy on the macroeconomic front. I think that was very much something that member states looked at to say, yes, now the government is more serious about clearing the arrears, and that for us is then a good sign.
Right. Moving beyond the debt subject, despite duty-free access, only 200 Zimbabwean companies are currently exporting to the EU. Now, moving beyond the sanctions narrative, are there any other barriers that you think could be affecting the expansion of that particular number and perhaps the products or the bouquet of products that Zimbabwe is able to export to the European Union?
I think the first thing is that if you are a small or medium enterprise, going towards export is in itself already scary, and it doesn't matter which market. I think that's a big step to take, and I think that we need to recognize, and that's where I think we need to help the SMEs jump over those barriers. There are some barriers that still are in place in Europe. Those mainly consist of sanitary health measures, security. So those are barriers that exist, but they can be met. We are working in particular in the agricultural sector and the horticultural sector, where I think Zimbabwe has a huge potential, but where we also see that's also the sector where there are quite a few rules to import into the European market. And that's where we want to help these businesses meet those standards, get to the European standards. That's not us being sort of trying to protect ourselves. It's many of these standards are in order to health standards that would be also good to have for Zimbabweans. So whether you actually export or whether you have the products here, these health standards should be met. And so in that sense, we're supporting the farmers, the enterprises to get to these standards. And we have programs working with that, in particular in certain areas, because we have taken the decision that in order to really make a difference, we focus on some areas within Zimbabwe and support the region, and hopefully that then will expand to other regions.
Well, time for us to take a breather. When we come back, we continue with the aspect of looking at the bilateral relations between Zimbabwe and the European Union, of course, with the European ambassador to Zimbabwe, Her Excellency Catherine Hageman, right here on The Chase. The Chase will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Dental checkups, experiments, games.
The mixture is making bubbles and the bubbles have changed color. Our balloon has been filled by carbon dioxide.
We have it all right here on Happy Sprouts. Catch us exclusively on City and Prime, DSTV channel 294.
Didn't graduate. I guess I blew it.
You couldn't advise him anything. He would just look at you and say, so who do you think you are?
We were just like really spoilt.
And then they just give me the receipt and I'd pay.
That guy walks in one day and then he says that he wants to make a movie.
He was blowing the money.
There was just like this habit that he had where as soon as he got money, it was gone.
I just didn't have the skills or the experience.
This money, I could see it disappear so fast.
Where music transcends boundaries, where rhythm and melody unite the hearts of people, comes a show that celebrates the power of music like never before. Get ready to dive into a sonic journey that will leave you mesmerized and yearning for more. Welcome to the captivating world of Z-Vibes. Vibe to it, baby.
You're watching The Chase, Zimbabwe's premier current affairs program, and I'm Eben Mabunda coming to you from Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. We are looking at the subject EU-Zimbabwe Relations 2.0. What changes can we expect? And of course, we continue the conversation with the European Union ambassador to Zimbabwe, Her Excellency Catherine Hageman, of course, here on The Chase. Now, picking up from where it is that we left off, the EU Global Gateway Strategy has a massive 150 billion euro budget for Africa, focusing on infrastructure and green energy. Now, while the 113 million euro Kariba Dam rehabilitation is a major success, some critics argue that Zimbabwe is low out of larger sovereign lending due to its over $21 billion debt and arrears. The question is this: how will the 2026 lifting of personal restrictions help unlock these larger global gateway funds?
No, indeed. We haven't been able to do all that we wanted to do in terms of the global gateway up to now. The issue is not so much the restrictive measures, it's been more the areas, because the whole philosophy of the global gateway is to say, in order to uplift countries from often lower middle income to high income, we can't do it alone with just development cooperation money. And so what we need is the banks and the blending and the guarantees that the banks can give. And that has just not been possible as long as Zimbabwe has been in arrears. And so I think it's really essential to continue along the track that the government is now taking to clear the arrears, and the decisions that have been taken now on the economic track with the SMP have been super important on this. And I think that's how Zimbabwe will get there, that we can more widely do global gateway projects. We have some, and we have some regional ones, and we have some smaller national ones, but the big sort of global gateway, I think there will be much more opportunities once we have cleared the arrears.
Right. Zimbabwe primarily exports raw products or primary products to the European Union, and yet when you look at the EU, it is big on value addition. What sort of cooperation is in place, or are you looking at in terms of helping Zimbabwe leapfrog to value addition and not just export raw products to the European Union?
No, indeed. I mean, I think there are two parts that you can look at. One is indeed that we are working with small and medium-sized enterprises to support value addition. The other thing is that we are that European member states are importing some of the machinery that is needed for such to happen. I've already visited one farm where then the goods are packaged and processed locally, and I've seen them here on the market, but they can just as easily, and some of them are exported as well. So again, these are two aspects. It's the getting the machinery in, but then helping the enterprises then to export their goods out.
Right. Still on that particular subject, you'd find that again, speaking to the degree of industrialization that you'd find in Europe, also comes with it a higher degree of standards vis-a-vis what you'd find on the African market. Question is this: how do we work toward ensuring that there is an elevation in terms of the quality, the standards that Zimbabwean exporters produce, African exporters are able to produce to meet that high standard that you find across the European markets?
I mean, we're already seeing in many of the products that are coming to Europe that Zimbabwe is meeting those standards. In particular in the horticultural sector, I think Zimbabwe is doing that. We stand ready to support any of the companies that are willing to export to Europe, to help them meet those standards and to discuss what else can be done. But I don't think, I think often maybe you undervalue yourselves actually, because I do think that Zimbabwe does have good standards. It used to be the corn basket of Southern Africa, and I think you want to go there again, and those are high standard products in the agricultural and sector, and in that process we can see that we have more value addition locally by supporting the SMEs locally to make that value addition.
Right. Zimbabwe possesses significant agricultural potential, particularly where the horticulture that you just alluded to just a while ago. You also look at organic farming, agro-processing, the list, of course, being interminable. Now, in light of evolving global food security concerns, could Zimbabwe position itself as a reliable supplier to the EU, provided standards and volumes are met?
I think so. I mean, one of the advantages is that you are in the southern hemisphere, and that means that you have also that you can fill niches in times of the year when the producers in the north can no longer produce because it's winter or spring.
Right.
And so that's an easy way, in a sense, to fill that gap. And so with the right standards and the volumes, as you said, I think it's very possible for Zimbabwe to grow very much into that market.
Right. Sustainability has turned into a buzzword in recent years on domestic as well as international platforms, and of course for the right reasons as the Green Revolution gains traction. How might Zimbabwean exporters be affected by emerging EU regulations such as carbon-related border adjustments, and what opportunities could arise for Zimbabweans in renewable energy components, climate-smart agriculture, or sustaining mining with, of course, EU markets?
That's a difficult one. No, I mean, we don't want to sort of restrict per se the import into the European Union, but we do want to continue to be a sustainable, work on sustainable development.
Right.
And in that context, we are also supporting the local industries to make sure that they can adjust to those standards.
Right. With programs like Erasmus Plus and the Global Gateway gaining momentum, how do you plan to scale up the people-to-people ties so that the new chapter isn't just a government-to-government handshake, but a tangible shift for Zimbabwean students, artists, and even entrepreneurs?
Yes, indeed. I mean, we have some really great programs here, and the problem is often that people don't know about it. And so I think some of it is really just getting out into the field. It's all very nice to sit here in Harare in a nice studio and talk about it, but I think it's also important that I and my team are out in the field and promote these things. So on Erasmus, to go into the universities and make sure that everybody knows what the possibilities are and how to apply for these exchanges. For the businesses, again, to see how we can team them up with businesses on the other side. For artists to be able to have exchanges with artists in Europe, to highlight the cultural, the fantastic culture that you have here, to bring it to Europe, to bring European artists here and make that exchange. I think there are various programs we have on this front. I'm very much looking forward to going into the field and really promoting those. I've found that when you do that, people really do take it up, and so that's my commitment, is to be out there and continue to support these exchanges.
Right. I'll sort of just take you up on an earlier line of conversation to say, now that the EU has cleared the list of all travel and asset restrictions, what is your direct message to the Zimbabwean people? Is this move a reward for the progress made, or is it a challenge for the government to meet the remaining conditions before the arms embargo expires in 2027?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. It is a promise to the people of Zimbabwe that we want to deepen relations with the country. It is at the same time a challenge to the government to continue on the path of clearing the arrears, with the promise that following that there can be even more engagement from both the European Union development side, but also from investors.
Right, Ambassador, as we draw towards a close, what is your personal guarantee to the Zimbabwean taxpayer and the European investor that this new chapter won't just be another cycle of high-level talk, but it will translate to tangible results that both EU citizens and Zimbabwean citizens could benefit from?
I personally will continue to work on doing anything to clear the arrears, and that is, for example, the code-sharing in the arrears clearance and the structural dialogue. And I will continue to go out and make known what we can offer to all of the programs, and be there for the people of Zimbabwe.
Well, much appreciated, ma'am. Thank you for appearing on The Chase.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Fantastic. And of course, that's a wrap on The Chase tonight. Do follow us on our social media handles at Zim Papers TV Network, as well as at Z10 Prime. Your views and your thoughts are important to us. I'm Eben Mabunda, the money man. Let them do what they do. When we do what we do, we mean business. Thank you for watching and have a good evening.